You know what I like? Crazy Taxi.
Yeah!
When this game was released in February of 1999, it was perfectly suited for my 12-year-old self. The bright colors, frantic gameplay, and soundtrack featuring The Offspring and Bad Religion, two bands I had already been a fan of for a couple of years, immediately made this one of my favorite arcade games at the time, and all these years later, it still is. In fact, if I'm ever in an arcade that has a Crazy Taxi machine, which happens more often than you might expect, it's almost something of a ritual that I have to get at least one game in. And when it was eventually ported to the Sega Dreamcast, complete with additional gameplay modes and challenges, it was one of the first games I had to have when I finally got a Dreamcast of my own. Yes, indeed, this is, in my estimation, a perfect game that does everything it sets out to do. It's simple, fun, and addictive, and I can't get enough of it. You know what else I like? The Simpsons. Or I guess it's more accurate to say that I liked The Simpsons up to a certain point. As like most people, I eventually lost interest in the series when the quality dropped off. But when I was a kid, I always looked forward to Sunday nights and new episodes of what at the time was one of my favorite TV shows, along with Tales from the Crypt, Married with Children, and my precious Saturday morning cartoons. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when the show lost its luster, but there was a period there in the mid-90s when The Simpsons could do absolutely no wrong. Or at least that was the case with the show, because in terms of video games, the arcade game aside, it seemed like The Simpsons could do no right. Literally every game on the NES and SNES that carried The Simpsons name ranged from mediocre to punch myself in the ballsack bad. And things didn't get any better during the 32-bit era. As a matter of fact, they got considerably worse.
Come on, let's talk more beating. What the hell was that?
You can imagine my surprise then when in 2001 I heard about a new Simpsons game on 6th generation consoles that reportedly was going to play just like Crazy Taxi, which obviously intrigued me. I mean, a game based on one of my favorite TV shows that played like one of my favorite arcade games. That sounds perfect. And that game was, of course, The Simpsons Road Rage. And I put it on my short list of possible games to ask for when either Christmas or my birthday came up. But then I saw that it was developed by Radical Entertainment, which sent chills down my spine, as I'd only just recovered from Jackie Chan's Stuntmaster.
Great, my first migraine. Cut, hospital!
I wish I was dead! Oh!
What made matters worse was the reviews I read for Road Rage, decrying it as a shameless, subpar ripoff of a truly great Sega game, to the point that Sega actually sued Fox Interactive over it, which eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount.
I move for a bad court thingy.
You mean a mistrial?
Yeah.
So with all of that in mind, I decided to pass on Simpsons Road Rage. But here we are over 20 years later. PS2 emulation is pretty solid at this point, so with nothing to lose but time and my self-respect, I decided to give this game a day in court and find out for myself if it's really as bad as I'd been led to believe.
But there's the truth and the truth.
Before I get into the gameplay, I'd like to discuss something else that, as a one-time Simpsons fan, for me is a must if a Simpsons game is going to have any chance of being enjoyable, and that is that it has to feel appropriately Simpsons. Meaning there have to be lots of character interactions, funny dialogue, recognizable landmarks from the show, and plenty of callbacks and references. Most older Simpsons games never really got this right. Sure, they'd have Simpsons characters and be set in Springfield, but they always lacked the show's trademark humor and just didn't make great use of the license. Road Rage, on the other hand, gets this aspect of a Simpsons game right. The premise is that Mr. Burns has replaced Springfield's public buses with new nuclear-powered megabuses, which for obvious reasons are not safe for anyone to ride.
Behold the Burns Atomic Megabus,
faster, cheaper, and completely safe.
Please kill me.
But seeing this as a business opportunity, Homer decides to start his own taxi service, which honestly isn't the worst idea he's ever had.
That's why I invented this revolutionary makeup gun. It's for the woman who only has 4/5 of a second to get ready. Close your eyes, Marge.
Eventually, other people in town, including Mr. Burns himself, decide to get in on the action, setting the stage for some extremely reckless driving. And instead of picking up nameless NPCs, your passengers are all recognizable Simpsons characters, going to and from places you'll recognize from the show, including Evergreen Terrace, the nuclear power plant, and downtown Springfield. What's best about this is that the cast of the show provide the voices for their respective characters, and the dialogue changes depending on who's driving and who the passenger is. And the writing, for the most part, is actually pretty funny.
Hop in. I accept duff as currency. Thanks, Homer. You're a lifesaver. Can you take me to church? I think I did something last night I need to confess, but I don't remember what it was. Can I come?
So, in terms of general Simpsons fan service and humor, Road Rage gets my seal of approval. But obviously, that's not the end of the story, as this is a game, and you have to, actually play it. So, how does it play? Well, it's, again, the same basic formula as Crazy Taxi. You have a limited amount of time to pick up passengers and drive them to their destinations, racking up as much money as you can along the way. An annoying difference, though, is that while in Crazy Taxi, you know how much a fare is worth, and roughly how far away the destination is by the color of the dollar sign over the passenger. But in Road Rage, there is no such identifier, so you never know if you'll be taking someone clear across the map or just a few yards down the road, making it pretty much impossible to approach a map with any kind of strategy. It's all seemingly just totally random. Also, while the controls are at least decent, I didn't have any significant issues with them. The collision detection can be pretty wonky, sometimes allowing you to drive without issue and sometimes hitting you with things that came nowhere near you, which, needless to say, got very annoying very quickly. The ultimate goal of the game is to collect as much money as possible, which you can then spend on unlocking characters and new maps to drive on. But something that bugged the hell out of me is that you can only buy one thing at a time, needing to cross a certain threshold before the game gives you the choice of unlocking a character or a map, as opposed to having each individual unlockable cost a certain amount of money, meaning that if you want to unlock everything, you'll need to play a lot of Road Rage.
Ain't nobody got time, ain't nobody got time, ain't nobody got time for that.
You can earn extra money in the challenge mode, which has you completing various tasks as different characters, such as knocking over targets, running down mascots, or passing a bunch of checkpoints, all in a very limited amount of time, with most of them coming right down to the wire, and these can be kind of fun, but also quite frustrating at times. The maps themselves are quite large though, and feature lots of little shortcuts and hidden areas, which are handy when delivering passengers as quickly as possible. And thankfully, Road Rage also includes a Sunday drive mode, which allows you to explore maps as much as you like without a time limit, so you can at least familiarize yourself with them and do better when you're actually playing against the clock.
Big idea. There you go. You'd get eaten alive out in the streets of Glasgow.
So the gameplay is kind of a mixed bag, and so are the graphics and sound, unfortunately. Visually, this is a colorful game with plenty of recognizable Simpsons locales and sight gags, and the character models at least look okay. This is a 2001 PS2 game after all, but the environments generally lack detail and just look kind of cheap, especially when you get up close to buildings or the outer boundaries of the map, sometimes looking more like a late-era PS1 game. So yeah, the visuals could have been a lot better, and so could the sound design, as the soundtrack is pretty bland and forgettable, and the sound effects are kind of glitchy, honestly. But the saving grace is the voice work, which at the very least keeps the jokes coming, which I appreciated.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick. The what now?
I'm a little dizzy from the anesthetic. I'm just going to sit here for a while.
So, again, I ask, is The Simpsons Road Rage really that bad? And when I say that, I mean, is it deserving of the 2 and 3 out of 10 scores people were giving it back in the day? And my honest opinion is no, it isn't that bad, but it's definitely subpar. I had some fun with this game, and I appreciated all of the jokes and references to the show, but my fun only lasted for a couple of hours before I was ready to put this one down and go back to playing some Crazy Taxi, which is far and away a much more polished and fun game. It was an admirable attempt, but Radical Entertainment just missed the mark with this one. They would redeem themselves later though with a far superior Simpsons game, which I might just have to save for another video. For now though, that's all the time we have for the quirky little town called Springfield.
I'm gonna miss Springfield. This town's been awfully good to us.
No, it hasn't, Dad. That's why we're leaving.
Oh yeah! So long, Stink Town!